Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt! The Dork Lords. We are here today talking about the Lazarus Project, Season 2, Episode 7. We open where we left off shortly before the end of Episode 6. In fact, we get some of the same footage. Episode 6 ended with a reset. Episode 7 shows the events that led up to that reset. So, kind of chronologically, the story doesn't advance, leaving the reset for the finale. Bryson number 3 is what we'll call him, the one who's been time hopping after George, dies in George's car after revealing he's Wes's son. As he dies, he says, "Find me at Lazarus," meaning find one of my other selves at the Lazarus Project, or as it turns out, 2 of my other selves. George realizes that what he's about to do is the monstrous thing that Bryson hates him for.
Yeah.
And that's where we open. We end with a desperate, frustrated George attempting to convince Wes to reset the year by torturing Bryson number 1, Kid Bryson, bashing his head with a phone, although he is still alive. Wes is unmoved. Sarah then talks to Wes privately, saying that the time machine plans are not destroyed and one of the scientists is still alive. Thus, Wes enacts the reset under the belief that Sarah will tie up the loose ends this time around. So we did get George torturing a kid. He's 19. He's an adult. Anyway, so Paul...
yeah, it's okay to torture him.
Yeah, no, you're 17. It's like, oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what a monster.
So, Paul, I have this memory of our last recap where you mentioned something would be stupid. But yeah.
Thank you. I didn't remember my exact quote.
So I'm interested in what you thought of Episode 7, sir.
Yeah. I liked it. I like being proved wrong.
All right.
And what a dummy I am. I love that so much. One thing that I always have thought with the show is that despite all the confusing aspects of time travel, that the core of the show is about character, and they focus on that all the time. Yep. And so in this case they did. Even though, I could wonder about some of the choices they made in terms of character, like the way they set us up at the end when we see Sarah thinking about George before she decides, okay, you know what, this is what I'm going to do to get out of this situation. Like, okay, it's interesting. Why are they setting us up that way? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Those thoughts were so important before she talked to Wes. And you said, and I'm, since you've been wrong far more than me, I don't know. I hadn't thought, well, I mean, I guess, Wes wouldn't have had a choice to do anything to Sarah, even, if this objective, I guess maybe you might be right in that she didn't seem to tell anybody about what to do once everything was reset. If she trusts Sarah to do it, that's against our expectation. We know Sarah far better. Why would we think that Sarah, would necessarily try to accomplish the mission that Wes wants?
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking about this back toward the beginning of the season. I was wondering if we would get some kind of a conflict, a split between George and Sarah. We already kind of had one. But like they were still like, oh, I still have feelings for you, blah, 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 but we're together, we're a unit. But like, what if their agendas were opposed? And I feel like this is that moment. I don't think it's a ruse. I don't think Sarah just brought it up to get the time reset. I think Wes's talk because most of this episode, not most, but a lot of the episode is Wes explaining her position and why she is not going to push that button.
Yes.
And I think she convinced Sarah. In saying that the actual time travel is terrible, and then Sarah seeing George like beating this guy, I don't know. I feel like she decided to go on Team Wes. I think at this moment she's on Team Wes, which will put her in opposition to George, who is obviously not on Team Wes.
Now, here's the thing, though, that also occurs to me, is that I don't know what George's plan is. Why does he think that a reset, is going to save him?
I think he just thinks so many people are dead. I don't want them dead. My friends are dead. I'm going to bring them back. I think it's as simple as that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, it could be that, but then, why wouldn't you think, okay, Wes is going to make sure to kill us all much earlier?
Yeah, no, you're right.
I mean, really, it's like if you look at all the times that have been reset, Wes has been expanding the number of people she kills. So, why she wouldn't also say, Sarah, if you could kill my son much earlier, that would be so much better.
She kills her former love interest.
Yes.
Robin Lerner in this one.
Yeah, and the whole reason why they, one thing I didn't completely appreciate before, but I was thinking that they've got two things to do. They have to save Janet and also fix the problem in the future. But that problem only exists because they didn't kill her love interest at first. He was like, no, we're going to keep trying this until we do it. And so if you kill him, you actually don't get the loop in the future.
Well, or if you could figure out a way to be back. Part of the obstacle to this season is that they were always having to go to 2012. They were trying to go to 2023, but the time machine was sending them to 2012. So if they could have figured out how to just get to 2023 and stop Janet from being kidnapped, they could have solved at least part of that problem. I mean, you still got the issue of there are scientists who know at least how to make a crappy time machine. No.
For her, it's better if, it's like sort of like they're saying here, this is the control. You can stop this over several years ago from happening, and it's in the past, and so that'd be good. And so she's like, yeah, would be good.
It also occurred to me that Lerner, this is the reason, I mean, maybe this is obvious, but the fact that he gets murdered here and there's a reset, he's already mentioned he's been dead a few times, so he has the serum. So he's obviously now, when the reset happens, that's why he goes into hiding when he does, right? Because he's like, okay, well, I'm going to get bumped off in a cafe unless I take the team and go and, hide out in a bunker. So I feel like that this moment in time is what projected him or propelled him to make the choices that he does later, right?
It could be. This is very twisty.
Yeah. Now, okay, on that note, I could be wrong, but I think we're seeing, probably not, frankly. Now that I say it, this won't be new. Right. But I think this is a...
Ooh, I'm excited. You could be wrong now.
I think this is a new to this show side effect of time travel. So obviously, the way time travel has been working in the show is when people go back in time, they get to choose how they're going to act going forward. They have a new set of choices,
right?
Free will of sorts. Mm-hmm. But here, George knows that something he does to Bryson in this moment is going to be perceived as monstrous for the rest of Bryson's life.
Yes.
So when he bludgeons Kid Bryson with the phone, I think part of the reason that he does it is that he's been told that he did something terrible during the sequence, and so it's almost like he's been given permission to do it. Like, oh, well, this must have been what I did. As opposed to just like walking out of the room or something. Like, I give up. He's been told, oh no, you do something so bad that I'm trying to kill you through time. And, so he ends up bludgeoning a kid. I think that's, so I don't know that we've had that before where somebody's told, this is what you did. And they can't, and they're like, oh, I guess you're right. I guess I'm a monster in this moment. So I think that's a new wrinkle in time?
I suppose. I suppose, so it's being reset, and so unless things go wrong this next time around, that won't happen, right?
Correct, although everybody's got the memory of it, right? I mean...
Right, true.
Yeah.
But, at least Bryson might be like, okay, at least this time you didn't beat my ass.
You had the capacity to do it. That's all that matters. I know the real you.
One of the things to think about is the fact that the Bryson that did kill George a number of times did not have the experience of the girl telling him Like,
right.
okay, he saves your life. And so then making the decision, okay, I'm going to save his life, you idiot. And then, dying and like, you can find me here. It's sort of like he's saying to him, oh, this is where you can kick my ass.
It's great point. It's a self-fulfilling loop. It's that paradox thing. If he isn't there in the car going, find me at Lazarus, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Find me at Lazarus, I'm Bryson Wesley dead.
Yeah.
So if he hadn't said that, you're right. This loop wouldn't have happened. So you're like, he fulfilled the prophecy of, oh, this guy's going to be terrible to me, and then I'll hate him for the rest of my life. I hadn't thought about that. Good call, sir. That's exactly right.
Like, what, he didn't know, like, oh, yeah, I'm only kicking your ass because you told me to come here. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of this if it weren't for you. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, George actually pulls in the dead Bryson number 3. He's like, blame this guy. All right, this guy's the guy that he was following me around, trying to shoot me in the head. Then he told me to come here, and now you're here, and he told me I was supposed to hit you with the phone. So, all right, what do you blame? There we go. That's your enemy. Most of this episode is kind of like a heist-ish type thing, like the break-in.
Yes.
By the way, shock. They're able to break into the Lazarus Project. I mean, I get there were guys with guns. It was dangerous, but historically, this show is not. Security has never been job one.
No, I was going to say that. It's like.
There were more secure back then.
Let's make it so that there's only one guy at the who is at the checkpoint who could get pulled into a van. Let's do that, and let's have a couple guys in a room that if you manage to get through the first checkpoint, then you can kill them and tell the guy at the gate that it's okay that a complete imposter is there. I mean, still bad security.
Also, just the fact that when George and Sarah break into Wes's office and they're like, they spend, I did have to go back and watch, but I think several minutes go by before they drop the blind.
Yeah.
So that's a huge picture window looking out at the floor filled with people, and nobody's like, wow, that's weird.
But, we've only seen, a certain amount in Wes's office. We don't know if most of the time people are holding guns at her head.
Right.
That it's just like, it's Tuesday.
Exactly.
She likes people to hold guns up to her when they're talking to her.
It's practice. It's all part of the Lazarus Project. What if?
Yeah, all part of the drill. Oh, okay.
I did like Samson's kind of awkward participation in the heist.
Yes.
I think my favorite moment in the episode was when he's given the directive to stall the soldiers who have just arrived.
Yes.
And so he's like, hey, turns out Wes is double booked. I'm just going to have to wait. And they're like, for how long? And there's that moment of like, oh, this is where it's going to go bad. And he's like, half an hour? And they're like, all right. The simplicity of that solution. You're like, I think that could actually work. I think that's actually, okay. So good on you, Samson. Well done.
Good. Yeah.
That was.
You underestimate your abilities in these moments,
right?
And they always have the scene of like, what? You want me to do what? It's like you're not doing too bad.
Oh, I feel like there is a change in Sarah and George's relationship. Wes has a vision of the future that she's not that impressed with in terms of like, these are the agents I hired.
Yeah.
She's obviously like,
she's definitely never gonna hire them now.
Yeah, right. Okay, good point. Wouldn't future Wes now be informed by this?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
I would think so.
So in other words, this whole time she was like, oh, George, he's gonna be terrible or whatever.
Yeah, depending upon what Sarah does, maybe she'll like recruit her earlier. So Ross doesn't tell her that he killed the version of Janet during this thing. So if she doesn't find that out, and he doesn't really seem to, he's like, okay, well, you're going to go home. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's like you just saw a version of Janet that you had to kill because she was doing something, but that doesn't faze him especially. It phases Janet, sure.
It phases Janet,
yeah. But,
just take the rest of the day, that's fine.
Yeah.
Take the weekend.
You've got a couple of years before I have to kill you. So.
Yeah.
I like. The one in the future, that's the one I have a problem with.
So maybe God bless. It gets complicated, right, with
Yeah.
the time thing. But let's say for a second that Sarah is on Team Wes, and Wes realizes that as we go forward.
Yeah.
That maybe that's the whole reason she ends up taking George on, because she knows that George eventually leads to Sarah, which Sarah is important for her to, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
or maybe it's just that George has to try to blow up the world in order for all this stuff to... I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. But I was thinking at the time, wait, well, these people aren't going to forget these things. It's not like we're resetting they're blanking their memories. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really understand what it is that they're attempting to do. I mean, she doesn't understand at all, in fact, right? One of the things I was thinking of, geez, are they going to get out of it by explaining exactly what's in the future? There's this thing, but it only happens because she's failed at what she wants to do, which is stop it from happening in the first place. So really, they'd only be telling her how better to stop it.
Which is kind of what happens, right? That's what Sarah's like. Look, if you want to do this right, you got to reset time so that I can get rid of the scientists and the plans.
Yeah, and so what's their way out of it, right? I mean, from any perspective. Once they go, everything is reset. Then from Wes's perspective, kill all these people, just so that, and with the exception of your son, because make sure that he's convinced that I didn't know why your father was killed.
You would think that Operation Midnight would happen as soon as possible. She's gonna be like, go, 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 go! Don't wait. Go kill all the scientists, or as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And I brought this up last time. The Dane, I was waiting for him in this episode to what is he gonna do with the knowledge that he's about to get shot? So we're gonna see that. But I feel like my guess is he just locks himself in the cabin. That'd be the only move I think he could do. Unless he just comes out guns blazing or something, but
he's like, you guys can leave now.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't shoot me through the door.
Maybe he's got an eject button, canopy. So you see him running toward the trees, with a big parachute.
Or he just tries to charge in. I guess that's an option. I guess if he's like last time they waited for me to come in so they could tell me that they know what I'm going to do.
Right.
This time. I know they know.
So there's so it is setting up. I thought we were going to see that this episode. I was wrong.
No.
So
I was. Oh well, you're so much less wrong than me.
We're wrong about a lot of this. I thought the Dane was trying to crash the plane. Hell, I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
So we're right and wrong. We're going to time travel back and fix all the times we were wrong.
Oh, yes, exactly.
So, yes, they're going to be jumping back. Everybody's got knowledge, which is what makes this really tricky.
Yeah.
And I do think that George and Sarah are on opposite sides of the fence at this point. So
you're probably right. I wonder if what's going to happen actually is...
Because she's in the plane, too, right? So she's going to be like...
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Does she have?
I don't know. I wonder if the last thing she does though is kill Wes.
Oh, okay, right. Does she do a big, double cross kind of thing?
Yeah.
I brought you into my trust, and I'm gonna.
Because really, so many problems would be solved.
I'll just say this.
It's so many problems. The reason why the thing exists in the first place because she didn't do a good job of doing it, and if you take into the consideration that what the Lazarus Project has been doing all this time has been wrong, then Wes is the clear,
And also, we do get the thing where she calls in. She's talking to somebody. There's somebody above her that does resets. And what's that all about? But I watched that whole kind of interrogation scene a second time, and if you watch, it does cut to Sarah's face a lot. As Wes is talking, we cut to Sarah just silently taking in what she's saying, and I think the intent is, you're right. If this time travel thing is too big a problem, we need to stop it. That's kind of what based on the outcome here, I feel like that's where she landed.
Certainly I can imagine, or for some reason I'm imagining it anyway, where they effectively kill all the people who would do time travel, right? And then Sarah Well, I guess maybe it's more likely that Sarah finds that dude.
Which dude are we talking?
The guy that she met during one of those things.
Right.
That musician, and she's like, hey, this is fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I need in my life.
And that version of George is just none the wiser about time travel. And to what's Shiv's story, right? I mean, it has to be more than I got to see my mom. It has to be more than this final thing, because that would have already happened in this final thing, right? So what's Shiv doing?
I was under the impression that we were going to see, and maybe this could be happening here in the finale, that something comes down to which team is Shiv on. We're kind of establishing a team West and a team non-West. Yeah,
and they made a big point in one of the episodes where it's like, who do I trust more than West? Nobody. I trust West more than I trust you, George.
Yep. So I feel like he'll make a choice, and I would guess he's going to make a Team George choice, which would be interesting because George shot him so many damn times.
Yes, yes.
But that's probably where that's headed. But yeah, so that's where I think it happens. He'll be in this, and you'll have to make a choice. And so here's a question for you. You just mentioned you thought maybe all the scientists would die. Samson. Is this where he finally dies? Does he get wiped out?
I mean, I would guess.
I think he does.
Frankly. I would guess because I think, this is a big thing, right? Because I think it's hard to imagine though. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I really don't know because I feel like dramatically, if West succeeds in this next episode, then that's the end of the series.
I think I've heard they're talking about a season 3, or maybe
right. And I don't think. I don't know. I wonder. I feel like this decision to drop everything.
All right, here we go.
If they really did that, and therefore, I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead.
All right, here's my theory then. Because Sarah laid out 2 things that needed to happen. One of the scientists survives, and the plan survived.
Yes.
So I feel like somehow Team West will accomplish one of those goals. So I'm going to guess Samson gets killed.
Okay.
But somehow the plans get saved.
Interesting.
Maybe.
I'm going to ask you now. Are you now okay with time travel and stories? Or you're like, this show has done it okay?
I'm probably more in that second camp. This show has done it okay. Because there are some. I mean, if I overthink this thing, which I do, that's what I do.
I think somebody could go through and be like, what? Wait a minute. In fact, I would. $5. I mean, hopefully there are enough people where somebody could go through, and I would pay $5 to the guy who would go through the whole thing, the whole show.
Surely there's a Reddit. Somebody's like, and here's where my rants about the 317 chronological errors in this show. I still feel like it can be used poorly in that you can remove the stakes from a scene or a story, and so that's where it's like, don't do that. But in this case, it is creative. Here we got this situation where obviously part of the structure of episode 7 was, wouldn't it be cool if we had 2 Brysons sitting together that are one is older and has experienced this before, and it's like, oh wow, this is going to be terrible for you, and so like that. So that was a fun premise. It's an interesting premise that they carried out.
I forgot one thing. So you already matted the scientist.
I think so.
Is that your full list of mats?
Oh, I see. Ooh. Yeah.
This show, boy, that's what's like. One of the things I was kind of thinking is that, when I didn't think that there would be conflict, and I thought that, they're all going to work together now. After they figure out that. Oh,
right. You were pretty convinced that like the 2012s and the 2024s would be like, all right, let's solve this problem.
Yeah. But
still might.
Yeah, still might.
Like, will a 2012 version of somebody die? Will a 2024 version of somebody die? I think we've established, we talked about it last episode, that if a 2012 version dies, it doesn't mean that the 2024 version disappears.
Right,
we saw that with
So I think the only ones that really matter are these 2012 versions. in terms of the story, right? Anyway, okay. So you think definitely the scientist guy
dies, and I'll say this: I feel like George is going to survive. I think Sarah's going to survive.
Interesting.
But I think there's some other part of the team, whether it's a 2012 version or a 2024 version, that dies.
Because one thing that is the case with this, right, is that Janet hasn't had her daughter yet, right?
Well, the daughter was being saved. She
got
time travel back.
Not
but you're saying the initial birth of the daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's a time paradox thing.
Right, because all that happening was enough to make Revrov go nuts, right? So Revrov is still a part of the group. So, yeah, and they're just sort of starting. They're just starting the relationship. So she hasn't even been born yet, and all those things that make Revrov leave haven't even happened yet.
So in other words, what you're suggesting is 2012 Janet has to survive.
Yeah.
And 2012 Revrov.
Yeah.
I suppose. Okay.
Well, yeah, unless Wes finds out more about what's to come, right? Because none of this problem solves the problem they're trying to solve in the future that makes them go back 1 billion times. None of this. I don't think.
But also just the fact that they all would have foreknowledge of all these events, I would think switches their entire perception of how they would handle this.
All of them have foreknowledge?
Well, all these people that are back there.
Oh, those people do, yeah. So, yeah, you definitely want to kill all of them.
Anyway.
This show makes you evil.
Be a lot easier if everybody was just dead.
Yeah.
Just makes the plot easier to
handle. Yeah.
When there's no thinking people involved. It's just like,
I was thinking about it from Wes's perspective. It's like, this would be better if we didn't.
Yeah. And
we're able to, she's right. If anybody could go back in time and change particular events and then, change the present, that is bad. That is bad. It is true. They should.
She makes a compelling case, and I'm glad that the threat of torturing her kid didn't make her push the button, because I do feel like they established her character as that's not an option. So if she had, it would have been kind of like, oh, hell, you were so upset about people doing this.
Yeah. But I feel like the worst thing to do would have been like, we're going to convince your son that you really did kill his father. It's like, that would have been torture enough.
Well, it seemed like the son already realized that. Right?
I think his older self telling him maybe was like, what?
Well, also remember, young Bryson was in the car with Ross, and he's like, oh, you're bleeding, and he's like, yeah, I was doing a thing, and there's
but he didn't know what that was going on.
I don't know, because they talk about a death at a cafe on the radio, and he compares that to Ross, who's like, oh, I just did a terrible thing, and and I got blood. He doesn't realize at the time that's his dad, but then later he is told, oh yeah, your dad was just shot in a cafe. And if he just made a little link over, he could be. It wouldn't take that much to go. Oh,
interesting.
Ross.
Yeah, that'll make me want to go back to see if he's told he's killing the cafe or just killed.
Okay. All right, maybe you're right. Okay.
But maybe you're right, because you're more right than me. I'm going to go back and see.
Okay.
Your dad was killed in a cafe.
In a cafe.
His phone's right next to his head when you're trying to call. He's got a slide to unlock iPhone that says that you're trying to call him.
But they couldn't put his face up and then have it activate, and then he.
No, because before the Face ID. So they can't do that. Slide to unlock.
Yep. Yeah, good point though. Bryson also doesn't have any love lost for Wes at this point, right?
No, definitely not.
If he's aware that she killed his Bryson's dad, and she was unwilling to push the button. For
in
the
a way, though, I would argue
Bryson.
Maybe that was so convenient. That, for one, Wes feels so bad about what's going to happen that she's going to talk to this dude that she can't see the face of and tell him, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm so sorry this has to happen. Don't look at me. Don't look at me, because then I might
assumed, it's a great point, because I assumed during that whole conversation that she knew, but then it was pretty obvious that she didn't know.
No, she doesn't know.
And I was like, what?
Yeah. And for some reason, he doesn't get up and say, Mom. No, he's like, oh, I don't want you to see my face. No, I want you to be completely surprised when I get smacked in the head. He knows what's coming. He knows.
But in other words, from his point of view, I can kind of argue that maybe he had a point in not turning around, because he knows that she's totally against free time travel. He's a representative of that. She's going to be like, wait, you're a freak version of my son from the future. I don't know, maybe. But
I mean, he could like, hey, George is coming. He's going to kick my ass. Stop him.
Yep. Yeah, great point. Yeah, no, you're right. That scene was a conveniency type scene.
Yep,
for sure.
yep.
Oh, his back's to you. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, we're back. I'm excited to see how this thing wraps up.
Yeah. I'm excited to be wrong again.
All right. Well, thank you as always, Paul. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.